put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place.
Good morning, viewers. It is 7:24 a.m. and welcome back to the Tobago Updates morning show, coming to you here live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. In this segment, viewers, we are happy to welcome on set with us Jude Rogers, Fire Prevention Officer of the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service. And this morning we're speaking about bushfires, the do's and don'ts. Morning, and welcome to you.
Pleasant good morning to you, Julian, and to your viewers, your listenership, wherever you are in Tobago. And I know there's some persons listening in Trinidad right now.
All right, so the first thing I want us to get started with in terms of speaking to the issue of the season, when do bushfires seem to be most prevalent and to become that kind of challenge here in Trinidad and Tobago? As early as this weekend, going around in the vicinity of Wimley, I'm seeing fire tenders up in the hills, really trying to control and to manage the situation. Tell us a little bit about that as we get started.
Okay, so legally, through the Agricultural Fires Act, the bushfire season begins from the 30th or the 1st, of December of the previous year and runs all the way to the 30th of June of the following year. So we're right in the middle of the bushfire season. Interestingly enough, the statistics point us to the fact that our highest peak periods for any bushfire season normally is around the period April to May. So we're right in the middle of the peak period, and that's why you're seeing so many fire tenders responding to bushfire calls at this point in time.
What would you say are some of the guidelines that you'd want to put out there to persons, particularly within this season, that running December is indicated to June?
Okay, so we have two challenges where it pertains to bushfires. We have the challenge of human intervention, where human beings, by our own negligence or by our deliberate acts, are causing fires to take place in and around our communities. It may be as a result of agriculture clearing, it may be as a result of persons doing malicious acts and so forth. So what we're saying is the Agriculture Fires Act has a clear indication as to what are the periods and what you must do to be able to access a fire permit during that period. So all burning that takes place during that outside of cooking in your home must be done so via a permit. And of course, those permits are derived or can be obtained from your fire stations within your region. You must go and apply for that permit, all right? And they will give you the parameters within which you will be able to utilize or burn land or shrubbery or anything of this sort, all right?
So for persons, and let me just take it home to the home setting for a bit. I'm accustomed doing my lawn, etc. I have that little compost heap set up there that I shift to an area. And normally, when it's dry out enough along with the leaves and so that you may rake regularly, you light a fire to take it right down. You're saying during the season that is not permitted, and you have to seek a fire permit.
That's correct.
For persons wondering, is this one of those complicated processes to access? Just give us a little insight into that, and who may, is it that it's open to persons based on some kind of conditions that you may submit?
That's correct. So in every jurisdiction, in every region, Tobago as well, there are fire guardians that are brought in to work temporarily for that specific period. The fire guardian's job is to take in your application, do an assessment of the land space that you would like to clear, the land space, or where you may like to burn. Now, the fact of the matter is we can do so much to protect ourselves within our own home. All right, so what I'm speaking about is where you have serious land clearing, where you have agricultural works, and you have a large acreage of land that need to clear. This is where the fire permit comes into being. But even in a small jurisdiction, without a permit, you can find yourself in difficulty with the police and with our fire guardians and our fire officers if you're seen to be doing something which will cause harm to, let's say, your neighbor's piece of land. Because you may light a fire within your jurisdiction, but that fire can escape you, especially if it is unattended. And this is the reason why we bring everything under a permit system. And that permit is very easy to acquire. You go to your local fire station, you indicate to the officers that you have a specific piece of land, you show that you have some sort of ownership of that piece of land, what is the boundaries of the land, and the officers will come and visit, and then they will prescribe the measures by which you can utilize a fire on that property.
All right. Sometimes in this country, we seem to only pay attention to the rules and regulations based on what the implications are.
Correct.
What kind of costings are we looking at in relation to penalties specific to persons who may say, you can talk what you want, I take it my chance, and bond water bond there.
Well, because of the ramifications of a bushfire that gets away, let's look at the flora and fauna of our beautiful Tobago Isle. What would happen if a fire were to escape, let's say, on the main ridge? That's a serious loss of flora and fauna and animal life. It's something that we just cannot have happen in our beautiful Tobago Isle, nor in Trinidad. And so the penalties have become commensurate to represent the seriousness of the act. And so there's a 6-month penalty in terms of under Summary Offences Act. If you are charged and brought before the court and the magistrate convicts you of such, you'll spend 6 months and you'll pay a $20,000 fine.
Wow,
so that's a very heavy fine and a very lengthy penalty in terms of time spent behind bars.
Indeed. Tell us a little bit more about, additional preventative measures that persons can take in and around, as best as you can within your very own spaces and places.
All right, so Tobago, members of the public throughout, it is known that we would utilize and we would burn our little rubbish heap at the back of our home. We're saying put that into a little barrel, put it in a compost heap that has no other shrubberies around. So what you really want to do is to remove the possibility of a fire jumping your fence line. And to do that, you must cut a fire trace. Now, what is a fire trace? A fire trace is where you remove 3 to 5 feet of vegetation right down to the dirt and eliminate all shrubbery. So what you have, as you know, if there is no combustible material, a fire cannot burn. So if you reach down to the dirt, the sand, the fire cannot jump that space. So you need to have one of that around the perimeter of your property. So you cut your fire trace, you contain the burning within a barrel or in a compost heap that is your custom doing. You put some sort of barricades around it. You maintain a barrel of water, a barrel or two of water, your water hose. Now, I'm not suggesting that in the dry season you use a water hose, but you contain in a barrel of water so that you can easily use it. And the critical part, always keep an eye on the fire that you started. Always keep an eye on it. Leaving that fire unattended is where we have noticed that fires have spread into other person's property. All right, clean your guttering because leaves and shrubs get into your guttering. And if a bushfire comes up to your home, more than likely it's your roof or the eave of your property that would be involved. And that is how some houses have been involved in fires as a result of bushfires.
Very, very interesting perspective there. I saw once where, I think it is persons would be wet around, like a little distance off.
Yes.
Is that one of the things that is suggested? So they indicate that wetting around this thing, I light it here, but before I light it, whether it's 1-2 feet off, you see them wetting right around the entire pile. Is that effective?
No, that is a strategy, but the one that I would have indicated to you would be the best. Obviously, when the fire approaches, if a fire were to be on the outside of your fence line and it approached and it came up to, let's say, wet ground or wet grass, but the fact of the matter, some of these fires are so intense that even wetting around your property is not going to suffice. So we are asking that you remove the vegetation, a fire trace, 3 to 5 feet. You could even go even wider because what it does, some of these bushfires are raging. And if you have trees in your property, the trees, even though they're higher than the fire trace, they can become part of the bushfire. And this is what we want to eliminate.
All right. Tell us a little bit as well. You made a very interesting connection there. So for the person where I'm in my home space, the smoke starts to become very heavy. I probably noticed some open area land, a bushfire has started. What course of action do you suggest for members of the general public to assist, in terms of fires with that?
Well, definitely your first premise must be to call the fire service at 990 and report that fire. In fact, it is a legal responsibility to report all fires, even the very small ones. Let us determine what is a danger or what is a hazard. Please report all fires to the fire service via 990. The operators are there and they're ready and willing to take your call and to respond to your calls. Right? While in Tobago here, I have observed a large bushfire taking place on the Chauvin Road, not too far from the mall.
Correct.
Fire tenders had to respond. That's a vast expanse of land. And the smoke and the impending smoke that came down from that. Think about the elderly. Think about those who are sick, who may be bedridden, how they affected. Somebody who had just had a little baby, and now they have to vacate their homes as a result, on account of the bushfire that one person may or may not have set. These are very serious issues that are affecting members of our community, and we need to be our brother's keeper. We need to be mindful of that. Think about a bedridden person. How is that person going to leave their home? And so those persons are already suffering as a result of oxygen, and we've made it difficult for them. So let's be mindful when we set bushfires. We don't burn all at one time. We burn over a 5-day period, a little at a time, so we don't create that large amount of smoke.
All right. You mentioned earlier about fire guardians,
Yes.
term relatively new. I wanted to elaborate on that a little bit. Who is a fire guardian? What is the rule? What's their responsibility?
That's a very good question, Julian. Now, fire guardians are normally between the ages of 18 to 35, and they are hired periodically for that period of the bushfire season. You have to go back to Trinidad and Tobago's history to understand the agricultural days that we had. And much of our production in Trinidad would have circled around the sugarcane industry and around agriculture. And so burning of property was part of the process. You needed to have persons who would regulate that and who would not have errant burning taking place and persons losing their property, and we can't determine who may have caused it. So whether it was Caroni 1975 Limited or some other person doing a malicious act, we needed to know. So fire guardians are very important. Every time of year, we bring them on board, and they are in each jurisdiction. In Trinidad, in the 3 divisions in Trinidad, Northern Division, Central and South, and of course the Tobago Division. And so Tobago is also very important where that is concerned. Fire guardians are there at the Scarborough Fire Station, and you can go there, you can speak with them. They would come and visit your property, and they would take a look at what you need to have cleared, and they would respond accordingly and give you the necessary advice.
All right, quick question coming in here. The cost for the fire permit that you have to go to the fire station for?
Very easy question, and the cost is only $10 TT.
Oh.
Only $10 TT.
So you were about to say 10,000 or, you know.
So it makes it very easy for someone to approach the fire service, but please come with your information, your ID, forms of ID, some sort of permission for the use of the land, whether it is a land tenure letter or something of the sort. You may not necessarily own the land, but you have to show that you have some sort of permission for the use of the land that you are on, and the fire service would then do the necessary. All right?
All right, excellent. Any additional information you would like to share with us this morning, or, you know, to reiterate and to remind our viewers before we conclude this morning's interview?
I'd like to just point out to one particular fact that we've been looking at the statistics in the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service, and we've been noticing a trend where it comes to climatology. Now, we may say, okay, what does the fire service have to do with climatology? Well, we've been attending conferences together with the Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Services, and we've been observing interesting trends, such as weather patterns. When there is an extremely dry season, we have high statistics. Let me give you the statistics. An average of 38 bushfires per day in Trinidad and Tobago. When there is a wetter than normal dry season, the statistics drop by over 300%. So, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public, I want to advise you that when the Met Service tells you that we're going to have a very dry season, that is the time for you to get serious about protecting your properties. And this year seems to be a very intense dry season, Julian.
Yes, certainly we have those days we're just out there saying to ourselves, my gosh, today is hot. All right. Thank you so much, Jude Rogers, for joining us here on set this morning. Yes, viewers, giving us a little insight into some of those realities. Remember, the season would have started in December and runs until June, so we got to keep a keen eye out there to help and to support each other. And for those wishing to make that effort to, you know, to have a fire or to burn or to do something in and around, please make every effort to get the necessary permits and so on. It's $10 for a permit and the requisite application process versus 6 months in prison and $20,000 as the fine. Let's just make that quick comparative in our minds to help us if we can't remember the entire details here this morning. So we thank you so much again for joining us here on set. Viewers, we want to thank you for continuing to connect with us. Those of you joining us via TV, those listening in on the radio, those of you online, this is your opportunity to share the live, share the live, share the live.